Good morning, Wabash. Speaking today at Pioneer Chapel will be Scott Benedict with his talk titled Persistence, Community, and Implied Obligations, Some Thoughts on the Wabash Collective. Scott Benedict graduated from Wabash College in 1998 with a degree in economics. He was a four-year letterman on the golf team and received the Wall Street Journal and Dr. Frank H. Sparks Award as a senior. In 2005, Scott became a director in the finance department at St. Vincent Hospital in Indianapolis. While at St. Vincent, Scott led numerous projects, including the development of St. Vincent Medical Center Northeast, a state-of-the-art outpatient facility in Fishers, Indiana, and held the position of System Director of Planning and Business Development for St. Vincent Health before joining TX Team, a national provider of physical, occupational, and speech therapy services in 2009. Scott has served in several roles with TX Team, including Vice President of Finance and Senior Vice President. In his current role as Chief Executive Officer and the Chairman of the Board, Scott leads all strategy and business development activities, including the development of joint ventures. Scott co-founded a movement science company in 2022 called Move Better, Move More, and serves as the company's CEO. He is a past president of the Wabash Club of Indianapolis and a former member of the National Association of Wabash Men Board. In addition, he has served in volunteer leadership roles with the Zionsville Youth Football League, Parker's Place Foundation, and Gary Brackett's Impact Foundation. Scott and his wife Elizabeth have 3 children and live in Zionsville, Indiana. His son Sam is a senior this year at Wabash. Let's give a warm welcome to Scott.
I really appreciate that introduction. I need you as my personal hype man. That's good stuff. Well, good morning, Wabash.
Good morning, Scott.
I am deeply humbled to be standing on this stage in a place I so love and revere. Thank you to the Sphinx Club for this invitation and to all of you for listening. This opportunity has special meaning for me today because my favorite Wabash senior is in attendance. Lewis, it's great to see you, man. All jokes aside, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Scott Benedict, class of 1998. I carry several titles, including shareholder, CEO, chairman, and alumnus. But the most important one is dad. It has been an absolute thrill for me to experience Wabash through the eyes of my son, Sam, class of 25. The last 3 years have confirmed what I've known since I was a student here. Wabash is special. Sam, you made your mother and me so proud of the person you are and the things you've accomplished here at Wabash. You charted your own path, and your story is only beginning to be written. I love you, and I love being your dad. I was going to throw in a joke there somewhere, but I felt like it was better to just leave it. By way of background, I graduated from Wabash with a degree in economics. I spent the first 7 years of my career as a management consultant in Detroit. The first 4 years were with Deloitte Consulting, where I specialized in healthcare strategy and operations. The final 3 years were with a local boutique consulting firm called Data Consulting Group. In 2005, with 3 small children under the age of 4 and a strong need to be closer to family, I applied for and was named Director of Finance at St. Vincent Indianapolis Hospital. I didn't know it at the time, but this was a life-defining move for me. I had the great fortune of working with and learning from my mentor, Terry Hamilton, class of '89. He invested so much time in my development, and for that, I'm eternally grateful. During my 4 years at St. Vincent, I was promoted twice, ultimately rising to the position of System Director for Planning and Business Development. As it turns out, however, I was not wired to be a hospital executive. So I left St. Vincent in 2009 to become Vice President of Finance at TX Team, a national provider of physical and occupational therapy and speech-language pathology services. This opportunity was exciting to me for a number of reasons, not least of which was that I knew the decisions I would be making every day would influence the outcome. One might ask, how I became qualified to be a VP of Finance with my undergraduate degree and experience to that point. The short answer is I wasn't. I had 2 semesters of accounting from Wabash, and that was it. The person who recruited me wanted someone who was, in her words, strategic and experienced in business development who could also oversee finance. So, like any good Wabash man, I figured it out. In 2015, I became a shareholder in TX Team, CEO and chairman of the board of directors. Today, we operate in 7 states and we employ 230 people. I also serve as CEO of a startup movement science company that I co-founded called Move Better, Move More. All right, guys, as I begin my talk, I'd like to set some clear expectations. If you thought you were going to have a highly academic experience today or hear the musings of an intellectual powerhouse, you've come to the wrong chapel talk. I'm going to speak about things I know and things I've experienced. I hope to provide you with some advice, a laugh or two, and a call to action. So let's get to it. I need to start with an admission. I'm a Detroit Lions fan. This is going on 25 years. Until recently, that was something I whispered quietly, often to myself, with more than a hint of shame. During my stint in Detroit, I became a season ticket holder, hoping to see Barry Sanders set the all-time rushing record. We all know how that turned out. For most of my 25 years of fandom, it has been an absolutely miserable experience. That all changed when Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes rode into town and began reforming the culture. In addition to biting kneecaps, one of the fundamental elements of this change has been the ability of the new regime to rally the team, the city, and its fan base around one word: grit. If you spent any time in Detroit or know anyone from there, you understand that the city of Detroit embodies grit. Underlying the concept of grit is another word: persistence. Every FIGAM in the room today should recognize this quote from notable Fiji and former President Calvin Coolidge. Nothing in this world can take the place of persistence. Talent will not. Nothing is more common than unsuccessful men with talent. Genius will not. Unrewarded genius is almost a proverb. Education will not. The world is full of educated derelicts. Persistence and determination alone are omnipotent. The slogan, "Press on," has solved and always will solve the problems of the human race. When I arrived at Wabash, I was far away from home, and I didn't know anyone at the college. I was homesick and wondering why in the world I'd chosen this school. During my second week of living in the Fiji house, I had a random conversation with one of my pledge brothers, Michael Burns. He was manning the phone booth on the second floor. And I'm sure this sounds a little bit odd, but we had 2 common phones for the entire house, and that was it. Mike's job was to politely answer the house phone and shout across the courtyard to alert people when they had a call. One evening, I was walking to the bathroom during a study break. Stopping to talk to Mike, which I initiated by observing that he was 6'3" and appeared to weigh less than I did at birth, led to a friendship that is now 30 years in the making. Mike is a major reason that I made it through Wabash College. He and his family treated me like one of their own and gave me a place to go when I couldn't go home. Like many of you, Mike came to Wabash set on becoming a doctor. He majored in bio and grinded it out for 3 years. After returning his senior year from a semester abroad in Australia, Mike knew in his heart that medicine was not his calling. So he got his mom on the phone and he asked her for some advice. She suggested that he take the LSAT and apply to law school. After some consideration, he decided he wanted to become an attorney. His challenge, however, was that he's not a great test taker. His GPA was respectable, but not outstanding. His score on the LSAT was nothing to get excited about. Yet Mike was not to be deterred. He was admitted into law school at IU in Indianapolis and joined the Fort Wayne branch of what was then called Baker Daniels upon graduating. After working for a few years in Fort Wayne, he decided to move to Jacksonville to practice employment law as in-house counsel at CSX Railroad. Mike joined CSX in 2006, and since that time, he's been promoted from counsel to senior counsel to assistant general counsel to associate general counsel to vice president, general counsel, and corporate secretary of a multi-billion-dollar corporation. Smart money would say that he will ascend to chief legal officer sometime in the next couple of years. Guys, Mike's GPA and LSAT did not dictate his future success. It is his persistence and his incredible feel for dealing with people, situations, and complex legal matters that have made the difference in his career. I think it's fair to say that Mike is one of the most accomplished alumni Wabash has ever produced, and he didn't score distinctions on comps or graduate with special honors. He has succeeded by doing the little things right every day, treating people with respect and decency, and embracing every challenge put in front of him. I would say it's also important to point out that Mike, like many of us, is lucky that camera phones and social media didn't exist in the mid-90s, but I digress. This idea of persistence goes hand in glove with resilience, which Merriam-Webster defines as the ability to recover from or adjust easily to misfortune or change. As you complete your studies at Wabash and then embark on your lives and careers, I think this is possibly the single most important attribute you can possess. Resilience looks different for every person. For me, it shows up in a boulder-sized chip on my shoulder. I first discovered this in 1994 when I was a Lilly finalist from the small town of Hamilton, Montana. In those days, they used to invite 15 finalists to campus, and they awarded 10 scholarships. You probably figured out the plot line at this point. I was one of the 5 who did not get the scholarship. As my friend Joe Trebley likes to say, I'm a Lilly loser. Nice, right? After I processed the fact that I'd let a full-ride scholarship slip through my fingers, I decided to attend Wabash anyway. My motivation was to outwork and outperform every person in my class who was awarded the Lilly. It drove me to push myself harder than I ever knew I could, and I had a very good career at Wabash. It was capped off by winning the Dr. Frank H. Sparks Award for all-around student achievement. I can tell tens of stories highlighting this pattern of dealing with setbacks by doubling down on effort and doing whatever needed to be done to prove everyone wrong. I think it's important to note that this is what works for me, but it's not the only way to demonstrate resilience. How do you respond to disappointments? How do you get back on your feet? It's critically important that you know yourself well enough to understand what you need to best deal with the losses, heartaches, and challenges you will inevitably experience. For far too long, we've been told to just stuff it inside, overcome, and be tough. This old school mindset isn't always healthy. Look at the people sitting around you today. Your people are your force multipliers, if you allow them to be. There is tremendous strength in vulnerability. There is profound wisdom in seeking help. Guys, life doesn't get any easier from here, I can promise you. But with the right support system and approach to working through difficult situations, you can overcome just about anything. As my father used to say, it's not about how many times you get knocked down. It's about how many times you get back up. It's about resilience. It's about grit. Shifting gears, let's talk about the Wabash Network. I hope you know by now that you are part of a community that is extremely close-knit and deeply committed. The students, faculty, staff, and alumni, and friends of this college. You were undoubtedly sold on the strength of this network during your admissions process. I can tell you definitively, anything you were told underrepresents just how robust these connections really are. As alumni, we take tremendous pride in the success of our students. It's almost obnoxious how invested we are in you guys. That said, the network isn't going to just come to you. From my vantage point, it seems that the art and perceived value of networking have been lost, or at least severely diminished in recent years. I'm not completely sure why this is, but no matter the cause, the effect is the same. Wabash students are not leveraging the network available to them the way that they should be. Speaking for all alumni, we are here, and we stand ready to help you. But you guys have to own the process. Think about the connections you'd like to make, and then tap into the resources available at Wabash, or leverage your personal networks to request some introductions. Put yourself out there and ask for a meeting. This may sound intimidating, but I promise you, we welcome those calls, texts, and emails. Once you have the meeting set, prepare. I strongly recommend that you do some research on the alumnus you are meeting. This will help you to ask informed questions and steer the conversation where you would like it to go. Going into the meeting, it's important to understand what networking really is. Simply put, networking is the process of cultivating mutually beneficial professional relationships. As an undergraduate, these professional relationships will look different than they do later in your career. At this point, you're likely seeking knowledge about potential career paths, guidance, and access to additional contacts. Networking meetings with alums are wonderful, low-risk opportunities to introduce yourself and tell your story, ask a lot of questions, learn from the alum's experience, and communicate your interests. Networking is not typically a one-and-done activity. It is highly unlikely that you're going to land a specific opportunity from the first coffee meeting you set. Do not walk in and immediately begin pumping your new connection for a job or internship. You have to understand that you are playing the long game. Gary Vaynerchuk is a serial entrepreneur, investor, content creator, owner of VaynerMedia, and author. He often talks about the concept of micro speed and macro patience. In our daily tasks and short-term activities, it is important to focus on speed. This is about hustling, grinding out, and getting things done. The more difficult concept is macro patience. Being competitive and wanting to succeed means that nothing ever happens fast enough. You must be patient. Your career is likely a 40-year journey, and you may not be elevated to CEO immediately out of college. Trust that where you start is not where you will end up. In fact, you will probably change jobs and careers multiple times before you get to where you want to be. And that's okay. It's all part of figuring things out. Being macro patient and playing the long game will allow you to build your skills and not get frustrated with setbacks and changes. Think of micro speed as executing the activities that will lead to success rather than focusing on the desired outcome or milestones. Wabash students excel at micro speed. You are all capable of going hard and getting it done. So apply this to networking. Come up with a plan, identify the resources you need, and execute. Have the tenacity to keep at it and the patience to wait for your desired results. Follow up when someone offers help or encourages you to reach out to them. You never know what will come from a conversation. If you need help getting started, ask Sam for my contact information and call, text, or send me an email. I'll be happy to meet with you. So looking at the Wabash Collective more broadly, we represent a unique community of people who are hyper-focused on providing an education that produces exceptional thinkers, strong leaders, and good human beings. The college's mission statement clearly articulates that we educate young men to think critically, act responsibly, lead effectively, and live humanely. There is so much power in these simple words. This is an environment that fosters the development of young men who can and do change the world. I think this is, in part, because we are unafraid. We are unafraid to learn. We are unafraid to challenge. We are unafraid to push ourselves and those around us to be better. We are unafraid to love. We are unafraid to lead. The Wabash value proposition is stronger today than it has ever been. So here's my call to action. Experiencing Wabash is only partly about receiving. It also comes with an unspoken obligation to give back. Wabash only works when we utilize our gifts to contribute to the greater community, not because we get anything from it individually, but because we believe so strongly in the mission. These gifts come in many forms and can be categorized broadly into time, talent, and treasure. I admonish you to find ways to make Wabash better. When you are asked, answer the call. Be an active participant on campus while you are here. Join a club, lead a team, volunteer to help those who are in need, contribute constructively to the dialogue. When you leave this place, stay connected. Mentor students, teach a class, help us recruit, donate, join one of the many alumni associations. There are so many ways to be involved. Find something that aligns with your skills and interests and give freely of your time, talent, and treasure. Wabash needs you. And I ask you all to remember that no matter how successful you are or how much money you make, you are not that big of a deal. Don't be too busy to return a call, text, or email from a student, member of the faculty or staff, or, speaking from experience, a fellow alumnus. Do what you say you're going to do. The Wabash formula is not complicated. It's about making the time and effort to pay it forward ad infinitum. We are not all the same, but we do have something very special in common. We are all Wabash, and we are all part of something that is bigger than ourselves. So I know you were hoping that I would extend this talk through your lunch and into your 1 o'clock classes, but I'm going to wrap it up. You may not agree with everything that I've said here today, and that's okay. While today is only September 5th, there is something I hope we can all agree on. It is never too early to start hating DePaul. Thank you. Wabash always fights.
A few final announcements. This weekend, tennis will compete in the UW Whitewater Fall Invitational. Soccer will compete against Alma on Saturday and against Bluffton on Sunday. And football will host their first game of the season against St. Norbert on Saturday at 1 p.m. Now will you all please rise and join me in singing Old Wabash. Da 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 da.